Well, good afternoon. My name is Javier Ramos, and I'm running for Congress for Arizona Congressional District number 5, which covers most of the East Valley, all of Gilbert, Queen Creek, parts of Chandler, and East Mesa, which is basically east of Stapley up to Meridian. Like I said, my name is Javier. I grew up here in the Valley. I was born in the Phoenix General Hospital, and the new hospital at that time, 1971, but my hometown is Cashin, Arizona. I was raised by a single mother, Romana, and by my grandmother, Lázara. She raised my brother and I, and we basically grew up in the agriculture fields, the onion fields of the West Valley. And Spanish was my first language. My mom always felt that education was the great equalizer. So my mom got tired of working in the onion fields and decided to get a job at the local school. Said, I'm done with this, and met with Quentin Aycock and got out of the onion fields, and I took her lead. I graduated Arizona State University Law School when I was 24 years old, and that's where I met my wife in undergrad, and my wife was born on the Navajo reservation, and we have 3 kids. First of all, in my background, I realized I was a little different than most people. There was this one back in 3rd grade, you know how kids chase each other? There's this one girl named Kim, I won't mention her last name, I still remember it. Kids chase each other, and it was my turn to be chased. And she goes, I don't chase dirty Mexicans. And I looked down at my shoes, they were dirty. I looked down at my pants, they were ripped. And that was the first day I realized that in other people's eyes, I was just nothing but a dirty Mexican. Then when I was 12 years old, we're still working in the onion fields. The most I ever made was $10. And the foreman, who was white, goes, you know what, you made $10, but I need to take back $2 for Social Security. He never asked me for my Social Security number. So at that time, I realized there was something wrong with our system between the haves and the have-nots. So I always have a special place for the workers that work in the onion fields. Moved forward to after graduating law school, I worked for the Navajo Nation, I worked for the Gila River Indian community, and I worked for the city of Peoria, and I also worked as an assistant attorney general for the state of Arizona. So I had city, state, federal, and tribal experience. And those incidents in my life never stop. So in my professional career, after practicing 20 years, I was able to get on professional boards. One of the boards, we had a meeting up in Tubac, the resort down in Tucson. And I'm looking like everybody else, khakis, golf shirt, on the golf course. And one of the gentlemen, who happens to be white, goes, I like what you did with the golf course. You guys really do a good job manicuring it. So I realized, again, I'm nothing more than just some Mexican working, and this is so odd. I'm on the board of directors as a professional attorney, sitting next to him now. We're sitting next to each other, so I wonder what he always thought, telling me stuff like that. But a lot of us experienced that. So I've had a lot of experience and legal experience. So what got me here to this point, that decided what to get me off the couch, because I'm no different than anybody else, was a lot of those incidences. One major one was when we were moving back from DC, Sheriff Arpaio was in power, and SB 1070 was the law of the land, where they could stop Latinos by the way they looked on the street. My son, who was in 3rd grade, and we're living in DC, said, we're moving back to Arizona, and said, Dad, are they gonna stop us when we move to Arizona? And I was like, I would burn down the town if they ever stopped my daughters or my son for just walking down the street. These are individuals who are Navajo, indigenous. They're not immigrants. They're not from somewhere else. They belong to this continent, and yet my son is scared that he's gonna be stopped in his own country, in his own land. Those are the instances that got me going, that got me tired of the system that we live under. No matter if I meet Karl Rove or Jesse Jackson on the same week, no matter if I meet Senator Barack Obama, no matter if I shake President Clinton's hand, I'm still nothing more than that dirty Mexican in other people's eyes. So I'm tired of being felt like a second-class citizen. I'm treated like that. When I'm getting my signatures in February, I'm knocking on my neighbor's doors. One neighbor on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock in the morning says, get out of here, you don't belong in this neighborhood. This is my own neighborhood, 2 streets down the road. So It's never gonna change. So my mom, as much as she said education is the great equalizer, that's true in getting your job, getting things paid for. It doesn't change the racial inequalities that we have in housing, education, any type of program you want to talk about racial inequality. Unless we combat that racial inequality, we're never going to be treated the same. My basic feeling is people above everything else in life. How do laws affect individuals? People can write all day long that they support DACA, that they support BLM. But when it comes down to it and standing up and doing the right thing, nobody stands up and does the right thing. That's why I don't accept any money. I can do whatever I want to do and stand up and do the right thing. So for practical purposes, there's two things here in the East Valley. Bless his heart, our current congressman is in the minority party. He needs to be removed because he's ineffective in Congress for our East Valley. Two things I would ask to be on the Appropriations Committee. Our infrastructure suffers out here in the East Valley. We have 4 airports, Pegasus, Chandler Regional, Mesa Gateway, and Falcon Field. I want to get an appropriations because Mesa Gateway is going to be the international hub between Mexico, United States, and Canada. I want to fully fund that airport. Customs is going to be based out of there. It's going to be bringing high-paying jobs. But I also want to make sure it's done correctly, that they follow the correct flight patterns. Because I live about 2 miles away from there, and the airplanes don't bother me, but I'm sure they bother other individuals. So I want to make sure it's done appropriately. The other thing is we need to make sure that we have sufficient water under the Colorado River for the state of Arizona. And we got to uphold our responsibilities and our agreements to the Native American tribes here in Arizona pertaining to the Colorado River. Every city and town is supposed to have a 100-year water supply, and I want to make sure that we don't overbuild. We've already got to that stage. I grew up here, so I've seen this issue since I was a little boy. They've been talking about it, and the year was 2025, they said, when we were going to run out of water. We really need to continue discussing this with the upper basin states, the lower basin states. It's an international river with Mexico, but we definitely have to uphold our responsibilities to our Native American tribes. I've always liked that word grassroots, but I like to describe, if you're from Arizona, we shouldn't be having grass. I call myself a tumbleweed group. Tumbleweed, okay? That's what we have out here. We're tumbleweeds. I'm gonna stick to you. I might not be the prettiest looking thing, but I'm gonna roll on by and I'm gonna stick to your vehicles. I'm gonna stick to your leg and you're gonna hear me. And I'm gonna blow you away with my story. So my campaign, I've never asked anybody for $1. Believe me, I worked in DC. People want to give me money left and right, but I really don't want to be beholden to anybody except for God, country, family, our neighbors, my wife, my kids, and the constituents of CD5. So that's my only responsibilities. I owe nobody any favors at all. So my unique approach is I realize the National Democratic Party is not going to give money to this race. It's the second hardest race for a Democrat to win in the United States. So they rather spend their funding on other races that are competitive. But I want people, Roberto, to continue to underestimate me. They underestimated me when I was in 3rd grade. They underestimated me when I was in high school. They underestimated me when I was in law school. They underestimated me in my professional life. And here I am on the ballot. So my plan is, I have not accepted $1. I did all the FEC filings. I spent about $6,500 my own funds, my wife and I funds. I have about $240 in the bank to expend. And what I'm doing is a tumbleweed approach. I have done this since day one on Valentine's Day, which is Arizona Statehood Day. I've been hitting the pavement. I've been talking to people. When COVID hit, I get up at 5 in the morning. I go out to the street corner at 6 in the morning with my signs. I've been doing this nonstop. So it's a multi-pronged approach. You have to be out there with the people in the public, and this is the only way I can do it. They appreciated all those truck drivers that come in from the East Valley to our side of town. They appreciate me being out there. After that, I go to the public library when people pick up their books. So my schedule is 5 o'clock in the morning today at Ellsworth. I'm out there in the morning. Then from 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm at the public library holding up my sign. People are picking up their books. 10 people rolled down the window and said, Javier, I voted for you. Javier, I voted for you. Javier, I voted for you. My whole family's voting for you, Javier. I believe in you. So money doesn't buy the world. I'm trying to change this paradigm. Is it a rich person's sport? I don't like to call it a sport. It's our political democracy. But is it a rich person's opportunity to participate in this? I'm trying to show that it's my country. The regular American can participate. The way you participate is hard work, being genuine, and talking to individuals. And that's what I do. So that's what I've been doing since Valentine's Day. And people are going to be surprised when I win this primary. I believe in you. You believe in me. People have lost hope from their political leaders. The hope, I talk to people, they lost hope that they don't believe in the American person anymore, that they're the outsider, that they're the neglected, that they're the faceless. And that's what I'm offering. Believe in me. I believe in you. I'll never forget you. There's a story I told to the Sun Lakes group earlier this week. My mother raised my brother and I. My grandmother's name is Lázara. Never want to forget her. I named my oldest daughter Lázara. She graduated from Stanford and works for a nonprofit trying to save the California streams. You support me, my ideas, I'll never forget you. And that's what I offer. I believe in the individual. Believe in me. One of the things I did is I filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of Agnes Laughter and the Navajo Nation. If you recall, Arizona passed a voter ID law. You have to bring 2 forms of ID in order to vote at the polls. Navajos, like a lot of tribal members, do not have driver's license. Agnes was born at home, didn't have a birth certificate, didn't have a social security card. Remember, these are first citizens who were not able to vote until the 1940s in the state of Arizona. So this voter ID was limiting the Navajo people from the opportunity to vote. I filed this federal lawsuit in the law firm that I was working at. We were able to settle it where they accepted a multitude of tribal IDs so that Navajo person can go to their chapter house and say, because the chapter members know, I know you, Agnes, and fill out a little paper, and you can take that to the poll and say, this person is the person she says she is. So we were able to settle that to make it easier for Navajo citizens to vote. Now, how would that help me out in this campaign or when I get into office? There's something called Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which 1964, the Voting Rights Act was passed to make it where discriminatory processes against minorities were in effect, testing of minorities, all kinds of things were making it difficult for minorities. There's Section 5, which requires an individual state to get federal pre-clearance before they change any voting structure in their state. Arizona was under that for a long time. For example, they have to have ballots in native languages. They have to have ballots in the Spanish language. So that Section 5 was to protect individuals' right to vote. The state of Arizona there's individuals trying to prevent people from voting. So once I get into Congress, I want to make sure that Arizona is once again under Section 5 of the federal pre-clearance. So any changes, any gerrymandering, any redistricting, any voting changes, any changes in the voting ID would have to get federal pre-clearance before it's implemented. So that's what I would be able to do immediately and protect our right to vote. Apathy is a big thing. I talk to a lot of people, and people just don't care. They see our government fighting. The Democrats fight the Republicans. Republicans fight the independents. What I'm offering is just the name Javier Ramos. They look at it. People call me all the time. They're just happy to see somebody that resembles them, that looks like them, that's actually running for office. They call me all the time and said, I can't believe there's a Hispanic, there's a Latino running for Congress. It just brings up, because the reason why I believe one of the reasons for apathy is there's people that run for office that doesn't look like our population. I am from Arizona. I look like our population. So that's one of the biggest things to do, and that's what I'm trying to get people to believe in. I'm nobody special. I just got off the couch and got tired. People want to look for heroes all the time. Don't look towards your political figures as heroes. I want people to get up off the couch, do the right thing, and show them that politics doesn't belong to the rich person. Politics doesn't just belong to the majority population. This country belongs to all of us. And that's what the point I'm trying to show to people. And I hope people would get inspired and say, if I did it, they can do it. That's all I'm trying to, one of the biggest things I'm trying to get accomplished. These signs are torn up. People ride their motorbikes over them. They're all over the street. And my wife gets a little upset. She almost tears up because she sees that's our family portrait on the street. And she gets teared up about it. So it's very personal to her that it's a family portrait of us. Once again, for me, the Latino population, family is the number one thing. But that's no different than America themselves. Family is so important. That's why Republicans, Democrats, and independents, we're all the same. We want all the same. God, country, family, whatever that family resembles. We're more the same than we are different. Nobody has to fear me. I want the same things. I want a quality education. I want quality, affordable housing. I want basic equality across the board. I want racial equality. That's why on my signs I want to have a civil discourse with everybody. You don't know how many times I get flipped off. I changed my title when people ask me, what are you running as, a Republican or Democrat? When I said Democrat, I've been called everything from anchor baby to baby killer to get out of my neighborhood. So you know what I call myself now? I call myself an American Democrat. And so many people, they don't know what to do then. They don't know if to flip me off because they realize then that I'm an American. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, we all want the same thing. Why are we fighting with each other? Over what? Over what? It's incredible to me. So yes, family is so important to me that's why to me, I would love it to win. I can show the downtrodden, the faceless that we can do it. But if I don't win, it doesn't define me. My family defines me. So I'm not gonna cry. I'll be happy if I win, because then I show the American people that we can do it. But it ain't gonna define me if I lose. But I'm putting the groundwork in, and nobody's realized that. I did it since statehood day, Valentine's Day this year. Every day I'm out there pounding the pavement. Everybody says, I hope you're not a socialist. If people really do their research, they realize that we give hundreds of billions of dollars to corporations. And that in myself, I'm like, isn't that socialist, giving hundreds of billions of dollars to corporations so they can succeed? So my thing is, there's nothing wrong with corporations, but they gotta treat their workers fairly, compensate them, make sure they have a livable wage. So I came up with this term called capitalism with compassion. Capitalism only works if it's working for the individual person who's participating in our American capitalist society. The other thing is, if you know, under the Old Testament, it's the 10 commandments, but the New Testament, I always call it the 11th commandment. Everybody sees, what's the 11th commandment? Well, the 11th commandment is love thy neighbor, love your neighbor. That's all I ask. I always thought that's kind of corny, love your neighbor. But now when I'm getting older, it really is. That really is. You have to love your neighbor. You have to have empathy, no matter what your neighbor is. Black, brown, immigrant, white, it doesn't matter. We're in this together in our country. We gotta make it work. Our great experiment in democracy. So that's what I really hold true. Love your neighbor, have empathy. So when I'm holding up, you love your neighbor, and that person's flipping me off 4 times, I just smile and have empathy. Why flip off somebody holding up, love your neighbor? I don't get it. Why the hatred? Why the fear? Well, my first thought on the pandemic is I really feel for the people who have lost a loved one. My wife is from Navajo. My kids are from Navajo. My in-laws are terrified. Navajo was hit hard. And what the pandemic shows us is that our most vulnerable people in society are the ones that get hit the most. So this whole COVID-19 has hit our most vulnerable populations. So now even with education, I worried about my nephews and nieces on Navajo. They live at the 8,000 foot level. They don't have computers. They don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have cable running up to their house in the forest. So how are they even going to do any type of education, regardless of a quality education? They're not even going to be able to get an education. So my campaigning is just I just do what I do, stand on the street corners. I stay my 6 feet distance away. I wear my mask. I believe in science. I believe in doctors. Our current congressman, he's always on Twitter saying that Dr. Fauci has it wrong, that this is blown out of proportion. This is him saying it. We have to open up our schools. We have to open up Arizona now. He even goes against Governor Ducey. What people don't realize is our current congressman is a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. You want to get your medical advice from me? I get my medical advice from the medical doctor. And who else other than Dr. Fauci? Dr. Fauci tells me wear a mask, I'm going to wear a mask. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. Just wear a mask. So what I'm giving people is hope. When my grandmother moved from San Luis Potosí to Texas, and my mom was born on the border in Texas, she had hope that her daughter, my mom, can get past the 3rd grade education. My mom won Bilingual Teacher of the Year in Arizona when we had bilingual education. My mom, when she went out from the onion fields to the local school to get a job, she had hope that her sons would do better than her. I sit here as an attorney who's been practicing law for 24 years. My hope is for my kids that we stop being treated as second-class citizens, that we're part of they call it the American fabric. So what I give voters is hope that you may be an outsider, you may be faceless, you may feel like nobody's watching out for your interests. People have told me that I may be the last hope. That's what I believe in. Whether or not people believe in it or not, once again, it doesn't define me because I have a wife, my kids, my mom. I have my daughter named after my grandmother. We continue on with the hope. And that's all I'm trying to accomplish. I owe nobody any favors, like I said, except for the constituents of Congressional District 5. So thank you for listening to me and finding that hope that you can do it. I'm just like you. You can do it. And all I ask is the simplest thing in the world is get up and vote. Turn in your mail-in ballot. Be safe. Vote on August 4th. And we'll show the American system that it belongs to us. So thank you for listening to me.